seconds. Over to you, Nimita.
Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, and the Center for Policy Research at IISc Bangalore, I extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished speakers, colleagues, friends, and the audience watching us live at the CPR IISc YouTube channel. Welcome to the panel discussion on gender mainstreaming in STEM policies and practices. At the onset, I would like to wish all of you a very happy International Women's Day, a day to remind ourselves of the courage and perseverance showcased by women across the world amidst the pandemic. We have also realized in this pandemic the significance of women in different walks of life, and particularly in science, technology, and innovation as researchers, caregivers, health workers, to science administrators and diplomats. We have them everywhere. Talking about gender mainstreaming, the idea is very central to bring diversity and inclusiveness in STEM. It is to be seen not only a critical dimension for creating adequate, skilled human resource, but also to embrace diversity, enhance productivity, and economic progress. However, even after 25 years of the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action, and various other global interventions, women remain underrepresented in STEM, which has serious impacts on realizing the Sustainable Development Goals. Realizing the need to mainstream gender in STEM, various countries and organizations have taken a lead to promote and retain women in science. In fact, India's upcoming STI policy explicitly emphasizes on mainstreaming and institutionalizing gender equity and inclusion. In today's discussion, I believe it's a step forward in co-learning efforts and practices for building a gender inclusive and sensitive science. We have with us a stellar panel of experts and practitioners representing different countries and institutions. We'll be talking about the do's and don'ts of gender mainstreaming in STEM. So what are we waiting for? Let's kickstart today's discussion. And to begin today's discussion, we have with us Dr. Anita Gupta, who is the head and advisor of the National Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Development Board. It's a division in the Department of Science and Technology, and she will be chairing today's panel discussion. To give a brief introduction about Dr. Gupta, she's a doctorate in engineering from IIT Delhi and a science administrator for over 20 years. She has been leading programs of innovation and entrepreneurship in the ministry, and she has played a pioneering role in steering the horizontal and vertical growth of innovation, entrepreneurship, and startup in the country. She has catalyzed the effort of establishing over 100 technological business incubators at Institution of Academic Excellence. She has also been very instrumental in carving out a new umbrella initiative, which is Nidhi, under the Prime Minister's National Initiative of Startup India. In the ministry, she spearheads a new and exclusive component on women entrepreneurs in technology. Apart from her national level contribution, she has contributed immensely in fostering outcome-oriented international linkages with various countries and have led some very important delegations. I welcome Dr. Gupta and thank her for chairing today's session. Now I request her to kindly share her initial thoughts and remarks. Over to you, Dr. Gupta.
Thank you so much, Nimita. Wonderful to be here with all these stellar and eminent panelists of global stature. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. I take this platform to wish one and all a happy International Women's Day. And what a beautiful day it has been right from the, I started off with the first session at 9:30, and I've been hearing stories, the kind of role models really which have emerged, and it really makes us proud the kind of challenges these women have really faced across the journey. And one of the session, like, I could see two thematic areas which were really dwelling upon today's role of women in variety of domains cutting across STEM, be it art, sciences, culture. We are living in a society, in a global village, where these kind of avenues, interventions have to be interlinked, co-linked, for co-creating a society which we are aspiring for. And first of the thematic area which we focused on obviously was dare to challenge the status quo. So what status quo are we challenging? That becomes the first stepping stone to carve out a policy shift. So status quo, see, if you see right from the, in particularly, I will be talking more from the Indian context, then one can correlate with what's happening around worldwide, globally in these specific countries. So we could see, while Indian traditionally, if you see the results of the secondary school, women, our girl students in science used to perform really well in the academics. They were taking the top spots while in school and collegiate education. But when we really analyze their role when it comes to the career graph and all, there has been a leaky pipeline. Many girls, brighter one, were not pursuing and contributing to the kind of education they have acquired, and this was a missing piece. So how to really address and plug the leaking pipeline? GST played a pioneering role with carving out a special component, women in science, in late 90s. And then there were 3 verticals under that particular program, which enable women to really retain the lost career or career gaps, to plug those gaps. And this was some of a very path-breaking intervention which from the government of India, which underwent bringing back women in STEM back to mainstreaming their career in a variety of ways. So that was the one aspect way back in say late 90s, which has really made a good dent, and also orienting some of the women towards the IP side. See, IP is still is a nascent area as far as the intellectual property sensitization goes, from the lab to market, product commercialization, research commercialization. But this program of enabling, creating a class, a pool of women STEM professionals and orienting them for the IP related activity and making them experts in patent piece was also a very new initiative. This program has really delivered some very commendable results. So these were the clear interventions which DST as a focused on. But talking about in terms of creating now research excellence, representing more women in the research part, and then as we move along the career ladder is the how many women are represented in the leadership roles. Today in one of the session, there was a slide shown, and we were asked to relate with the kind of abnormality one could see. So this was a panel of a high-end company, Bosch in Germany, and we couldn't find anyone, a woman, coming on the board. So and so is the case if we see from the education how many top-notch institutions are headed by women. We don't find them. There are handful cases. Women are there, but like not many. So what really is the bottleneck in terms of when we go for the leadership? What is the roadblocks? What are the, you can say, what women lack in their own, you can say, self-development goals? So what is that missing piece? I think, as a systematic, Nimita has already talked about when the STIP policy consultation started going on, stakeholder consultations, and it has been targeted. See, we have to have the goalpost in place. So Now it's the ultimate goal to have 30%. That's an immediate target in terms of representation of at the STEM representation of the women in the researcher community. So that is the one aspect from the research. Let me take a journey on a step further. As I had a board which focuses on innovation entrepreneurship. Now, some exciting avenues have come up ever since Startup India, Stand Up India national initiative has been coined. And I see the role of women in entrepreneurship, which was a meager 6% in 2013 or so. This is consistently seen an upward progression from, and as I speak now, it's close to 20% in the tech startup community. So that's also, and that has happened on a span of 5 years or so. So this is a welcome move. And why this has happened? Because of the proactive policies kind of focus on creating enabling environment and spotting women from across India. And DST was the first to partner with a program, Women Entrepreneurship Quest, with a US body, AnitaB.org, and that's how we could really tap women entrepreneurs across India. And then a series of programs have been built up to really tap them, nurture them. And I'm proud to say that these women entrepreneurs have been taken as a part of exposure and experiential learning to US ecosystem, Israel ecosystem, UK ecosystem, and these kind of interventions have really garnered much of confidence, much of visibility, that there is in terms of there is no difference as far as the way women look at the different problems. They also add to different elements of from the user perspective, which others men may be lacking. So I must say, women as a social entity, they represent full circle. They are the ones who not only create, they sort of a nurture, they sort of a transform. And that is the same DNA of what we are talking about, the science, technology, innovation, or STI sector. The one we are targeting, the way science, technology, and innovation can simplify, amplify, and transform and impact human lives in different ways. And no better time, we all have witnessed in the pandemic times, in unprecedented health crisis of COVID-19, where we had no solutions at our disposal. We call it diagnostic kits to ventilators, indigenous to PPEs, to various informatics solutions. All have been done and fast-tracked in a span of 3 months to 1 year, which otherwise would have taken a very long time to see the light of the day. This has happened. So another piece which policy will have to focus on is, once there's an innovation which is a commercial potential, how do we really engage with the other relevant elements of the stakeholder, be it industry, be it professional mentorship, to really fast track the entire market translation chain. And this has been in our dialogue day in and day out, and we have carved out a few programs to foster on this, how to really compress the runway from lab to market. So this is another policy intervention which will be focusing on. Blueprint has been prepared and will be rolled out soon. So while funding has been across a major bottleneck, whereas innovation needs to be scaled up, needs to be validated. So a lot efforts have been put up by Government of India to provide the initial seed capital, where the entrepreneurs or innovators are not coming from a where they can't provide they can't bootstrap through their own funds. So government is pitching in, government becomes an initial investor, and it becomes a part of their journey which and mitigating risks. So when government is there, we are trying to really not only create the enabling environment for entrepreneurship to prosper and thrive, but also at the same time through the kind of interventions, be it providing quality mentorship, access to market, product validation, product prototyping, we are all attempting to hit various bottlenecks which are key links to the entire innovation value chain. So as a part of our intervention, each link has been tried to be addressed in a most meaningful manner. Although everyone would say the country like India has multiple challenges as far as the innovation translation goes, but whatever is feasible and possible in the best possible manner, DST has joined hands with multiple state government of India departments who are now part of this game, be it our sister department DBT, be it like a Ministry of IT, MATI, department, even Department of Defense Production Act. I am happy to share that like kind of stories which are now coming, success stories of our Nidhi program, which makes us really confident that the policies which needs to be now aligned with the new clarion call of being Atmanirbhar or self-reliant, where the technology becomes the backbone, where inclusion is a key element as we move forward, or whether it's a STIP, National Education Policy. Now we have different pieces put together, but ultimate goal is to create a knowledge-driven society. Ultimate aim is to really tackle and solve various social, industrial, and other problems which are bridging the urban-rural divide in a very decentralized manner, in a very expert-driven manner, and that's going to come. I have a number of success stories to talk about and share about, because as a part of women entrepreneurship, we have to create a new set of role models. And if we create role models, they become the ones who can inspire many more women researchers, innovators, entrepreneurs in this domain. So there's a visible shift because of the previous policy level interventions which have been taken up. We see quite excitement in the whole domain of STI, and this is the best time to be an entrepreneur, I would say, going forward. So I would urge upon the entire women who want to take charge of their life, please be the better version of yourself in whatever you want to be. Don't depend upon copying someone else. You have to improve yourself, and government is there, the kind of policies which are being carved out through DST and through Ministry of Education as well. I think together this will be a game changer in whatever way we want to see our country progressing, to make it a really new resurgent India in variety of ways. So let us not wait, take charge of the situation, and script a gripping story which is based on the grit, guts, and glory, also with the kind of confidence you want to really build up, commitment and compassion. I think then this will be entirely new India, and women being the 50% of the total population, and if through our policy interventions, if we are able to bring and leverage the combined potential of women, I think we can add close to 1.4 percentage points of GDP. That's as per the McKinsey's Global Institute study. And that's how the total economic potential, which is translated, the intellectual potential of women in STEM could be translated into the economic metrics. So this is the kind of change one woman participation in entire economic activity can bring in the progress of economic progress of a nation. With that note, I welcome the esteemed panelists to share their thoughts and Nimita would really, I think, whether we have a time to tweak in the policy as well, these kind of recommendation as an add-on. Okay.
We'll definitely try to, maybe the whole idea is to just adopt and adapt some of the best practices, at least when we are thinking of implementing the policies. And that's how we are looking forward to listen to
Yeah, so my final word, thanks to COVID, science is now on the forefront, and let's leverage this opportunity and prepare a better world for all of us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta, for setting the context, highlighting some of the existing and upcoming interventions, and also how important and integral it is to have women. As I say that the world needs science and science needs women. With this, I thank you, and with your due permission, I would call the first panelist. So our first panelist is Janaka Pushpanathan, who is leading British Council work in South India. She has over 20 years of experience in art education, enterprise sectors, and she has also co-founded Education L&D and EdTech startups and was part of the British Council's think tank on intercultural dialogue. An alumnus of IIM Bangalore and Project Zero at Harvard University, Janaka is among the top 100 most influential individuals in building UK-India relation. She is a part of India Inc. 2019 list, which is the first ever all women's power list to celebrate the immense contribution of women, driving a glorious future relationship between UK and India. It is indeed a pleasure to have you, Janaka. Please share your thoughts and perspective. The e-mic is all yours. Over to you.
I like the e-mic. Thank you, Nimita, and thank you, Dr. Gupta, for setting the context so beautifully and also setting us really very big, audacious goals. I think, I mean, some of those goals and policy interventions that you talk about are very ambitious, and I hope every young person who's listening to this panel live or recorded will take some of that advice and actually strive to be a brilliant science entrepreneur. I think that's very exciting. I have.
Janaka, you went on mute.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I'm just going to pull up my presentation, and if it comes up, we'll see it. Otherwise, I will just talk.
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay, great. Right. So can you see full screen as well? Great. Yes. Just 1 second. Sorry about that.
Okay, we cannot see it now.
Okay, I don't know what I did, but it's gone away. It's fine. Maybe I'll talk, and then maybe when you come back to me, I can pull it up again. Yes. The last bit or something like that. Yeah. All right. So I think thanks, Nimita, for inviting me, and thank you to the Department of Science and Technology. I think for me at the British Council, and for all of us at the British Council, STEM is so important to us. And again, gender is a big priority for us as well. But just to give a quick context and some facts about women in STEM. I think as of 2020, the Nobel Prize has been awarded to 934 laureates. Out of these, only 58 are women. And out of these 58, only 23 have been awarded for the sciences, which is physics, chemistry, and medicine. And if my presentation was up, I had an image of Rosalind Franklin, who's a young English chemist, and she's very well known for her work with coal and viruses, and also her path-breaking research contributed to both DNA and RNA. However, she was recognized while she was living only for her work in viruses, but was recognized posthumously for her work in deoxyribonucleic acid and RNA. And she was never considered even once for a Nobel Prize. So I think there is a bit of inequity, if you will. And according to the UK HESA statistics, which is the higher education statistics agency, 69% of students studying medical technology related degrees are women. 77% of students studying veterinary science are female, and about 79% of women who study, of people who study psychology are women. And on the India side, if you take a look, in India, I think, like Dr. Gupta was mentioning, women form almost 40% of the undergraduates in science, with engineering coming a very close second. And among the PhD students, we have, I think, about 25 to 30% are women. And we have a really good example in this panel of people who are, PhDs as well as postdoctoral fellows who are women. But I think there is a fair distribution of subjects, if you will, and also women participate in really large numbers, not just in learning science, but they also form a very significant portion of science teachers in schools and colleges. And Dr. Gupta mentioned school education, which I'll come to later as well.
Janaka, I'm sorry, if I may interrupt, maybe you can stop sharing your screen because it's there, it's just blocking the whole view. So you can just share the screen for a while. Yeah.
Oh, stop. It doesn't show as shared for me. So this technology is like, I'm just trying to see how.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no, it's okay. Stop.
Yeah, I think the screen is here, but yeah,
Shall I just stop then? Yeah, it's better, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's better because it's anyway. Well, I'll just talk. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Is it better? Is it better now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So I think from a UK perspective, I know I was asked to share a perspective both from UK as well as our work in India, which I'll come to later. But I think in terms of the gender bias in STEM careers, and Dr. Gupta mentioned the leaky pipeline. So what is the reason for this leaky pipeline? Why do women at each stage of advancement towards scientific careers drop out at higher rates than men? Some of the things that we found out as part of our own research at the British Council and also from a lot of research that is available outside as well. There's perhaps a deep-rooted bias, whether it's implicit or explicit. Women struggle to find work in their respective fields at the same rate as their male counterparts, even when they have the same credentials, and that's a cause for worry. And women sometimes may be discouraged from scientific careers due to the conditions of employment. A 2013 House of Commons Science and Technology Committee report found that women as well as men were not very comfortable with the lack of job stability, the incessant pressure to publish and increase research output, and the long working hours required of professional scientists. Short-term contracts and pressure to move as well made STEM work less attractive than jobs in other industries. And early academic STEM careers are characterized by exactly this: short-term contracts, which are a big barrier to job security and continuity of employment rights as well. And one other thing that we find is, while there's intent to implement, audacious policies and goals for careers in STEM and women in STEM, we sometimes find that budgets are not deployed adequately, because in order to do this, I think one must invest heavily, and that's not happening. And also perhaps there's an inconsistent implementation of diversity policies. And the topic of this panel, so gender mainstreaming, in STEM, and why is it so important for science and STEM? And like Nimita very nicely says that it's so important for science to have women and women to be in science. I think scientific research, and Dr. Gupta mentioned it too, is more accurate when gender is considered. Whether you're studying seatbelt design or heart medication, research should consider perhaps gender and include both male and female subjects. And the results can be quite astounding and different, from the quality of the product to being sensitive to both women and men in terms of appropriacy, as well as I think they need to be tested on men as well as women. And women, we all know this already, but want to put it out there. It's International Women's Day. They can bring a unique perspective to research and scientific conversation. Perhaps I should say we can bring a unique perspective to science research and conversation. And a recent Harvard Business Review paper says that diversity adds to the collective intelligence of a research group, enhancing creativity and providing new context to understand societal aspects of research. And this is also mentioned in Elsevers' report on gender in the global research landscape in 2017. And there's no doubt, and we know this already, there's no doubt that we need more STEM professionals. More STEM professionals in the workforce, actively working in the workforce. And according to a 2017 report by the US Department of Commerce, employment in STEM professionals is growing at a much faster rate than in other professions and is actually expected to outpace non-STEM employment through 2024. In the UK, the Engineering UK report says that the field of engineering is short on human resources and will need an additional 20,000 engineering graduates every year to meet demand. And that perhaps also drove the British Council to establish it's a very beautiful program on STEM scholarships for women, which we'll talk about later when we talk about British Council work. I'm just going to quickly touch upon a couple of things which I'm sure the other panelists will pick up. What can we do to strengthen gender mainstreaming? We know that these are all the problems, but what can we do? And Dr. Gupta touched upon it in terms of secondary education and school education. Ending gender equality, perhaps, especially in STEM, begins at school. This can be done by providing girls opportunity to engage with science through programs like Science Olympiads. Another way to encourage girls to pursue a career in STEM is to give them access to successful STEM role models and mentors. UNESCO, in fact, suggests that educators combat gender stereotypes by including female STEM mentors as part of regular school curriculum. And I think it's about time. It's perhaps late. It's about time that we level the playing field through policies, principles, frameworks, and guidelines. And in that connection, one of the best examples and best practices in the UK that exists is the Athena Swan Charter, which was established in 2005 to encourage and recognize commitment to advancing the careers of women in science, technology, engineering and maths, STEM, but add another M, medicine as well, employment in higher education and research. All these guidelines and policies perhaps enable many changes to be made at the institutional level, from really small ones such as supplying training in confidence and negotiation skills, or establishing peer support and mentoring networks, ensuring that women are represented on panels, to the large changes such as providing affordable childcare on site, which would then have a significant impact on lowering attrition of women and addressing perhaps the leaky pipeline and retain really good women in STEM careers and also with other careers in science. I just want to make a quick reference before I hand over the e-mic back to the draft Science, Technology, Innovation Policy, Chapter 7 on Equity and Inclusion, which makes a commitment to creating inclusive culture and also mentions an E&I Charter, Equality and Inclusion Charter, which will be developed for tackling discriminations in STI based on gender, caste, religion, geography, language, diversity, and other exclusions and inequalities. And here, there is a significant reference made to inclusion frameworks like the Athena Swan Scientific Women's Academic Network Charter. And we are very delighted that the British Council is able to work now with DST on modeling the Athena Swan and working on an India-based approach to establish gender equality frameworks in HE, which I think Nimita is going to ask me to talk about a little later, but I will stop there and hand over the e-mic back to you.
Thank you, Janaka. This has been extremely overwhelming to listen to you. I mean, thank you for putting across so many facts and figures around the sectoral and the whole transition between the early career researchers to going further into entrepreneurship and taking up leads in science institutions. I like the idea when you mentioned about how important it is to mainstream gender right from school level and think about having policies and interventions around it to build up the value chain. Thank you so much, Janaka. With this, I'll move to our second panelist. So our second panelist is Dr. Man Singh Sidhu. Welcome, Dr. Sidhu. Dr. Sidhu is presently the Science, Technology and Higher Education Counsellor at the Royal Norwegian Embassy, New Delhi, India. He represents the Research Council of Norway, Innovation Norway, and the Norwegian Agency for International Cooperation and Quality Enhancement in Higher Education in India. He has also worked for the Research Council of Norway, a doctorate in food science from the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. Dr. Sidhu has over 25 years of experience in diverse areas, from research to innovation, public administration, as well as international industries. He has led several science and technology projects, published various scientific publications of national and global repute, and has made significant contribution to the international scientific world. I welcome Dr. Sidhu for joining us today, and I give you the stage to please share your perspective on gender mainstreaming in STEM. Over to you, Dr. Sidhu.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Nimita. First of all, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you. Dr. Suresh, could you please make my presentation in presentation mode? Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Suresh. First of all, very, very good afternoon to everybody. And dear moderator, Dr. Nimita Pandey, Chair, Dr. Anita Gupta, panelists, ladies and gentlemen. And I would like to thank you, Department of Science and Technology and Center for Policy Research, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, for inviting the Royal Norwegian Embassy and Innovation Norway on this very important panel discussion on mainstreaming gender in STEM on this specific, very important day of International Women's Day. I will start by thanking you all and wishing you all a very happy International Women's Day to all incredible women. This day marks the woman empowerment and her victory in achieving equality and growth in her life. It gives me a great pleasure to participate in this panel discussion marking this important day in the calendar. This gives me immense happiness to celebrate the International Women's Day. Moreover, it is important to highlight equal access and engagement of women in education in STEM. As Dr. Nimita mentioned, that I'm also representing the Research Council of Norway as well as Innovation Norway and DIKU. And DIKU is a Norwegian Embassy for International Cooperation and Quality Enhancement in Higher Education. Next slide, please. Let me just highlight some of the Norwegian strength when it comes to STEM and gender equality. And as you know, maybe most of you people know about that, the gender equality is very strong and dedicated commitment in Norway. This means that Norway will have more women participation in Norwegian research and innovation programs, more women participation in international research organizations and universities, as well as more women participation in Norwegian business as managers and directors. To achieve this goal, Norwegian government have an action plan for women rights and gender equality called Freedom, Empowerment and Opportunities. Norway has managed to more or less create an equal gender participation in labor force with almost as many women as men in the labor force in Norway. Let me tell you one thing about that. The increase in female participation rate in the workforce for the last 50 years had a strong impact on our GDP than discovery and exploitation of our petroleum resources. I'm very proud to say that Norway is one of the most gender equal country in the world and ranked second in the last year global gender gap index rating report, scoring high on economic participation and health. However, still a way to go with wage equality as well as number of women in higher educations and positions. There are more women completing their higher education in Norway, with approximately 30% of women and 20% of men have completed their bachelor degree. However, the proportion who has completed their higher degree education is increasing among both men and women. The challenge is that the only 29% of women who has applied for the technology or science as their first choice in university and college in 2018. Therefore, Norwegian government has given a support to many initiatives aiming to promoting women in STEM. Let me give you some examples. What Norwegian government and various Norwegian organizations are going to promote this. The Confederation of Norwegian Enterprises in Norway, which is the largest organization for employer and the leading business, they have got a state subsidy for 3.5 million Norwegian crowns for running an initiative called Girls and Technology. This technology, Girls and Technology, are targeting especially for the high school students. They aims to increase the proportion of girls in technology subjects at all level of education system. And the second example is called Female Future. This is a program called Leadership Development Program for Female Talents. And again, the Confederation of Norwegian Enterprises, together with Innovation Norway, is working to strengthen women participation and position in the business community and entrepreneurs in management and also in the board members. The government has also issued a direction to change the school curriculum within the STEM subjects to make it more appealing for the girls. On the positive side, Norway has seen an increase in shifting toward education within health, social care, and education, which is a positive indication that gender equality is improving from other side of the coin. The proportion of men within health and social care education program has increased by 7.2% since 2010. Unfortunately, we have seen a less positive increase in proportion of women within male-dominating educations, for example, STEM. Since 2010, proportion of women has increased by 3.7% to 6.1% in the subject like building, constructions, engineering technologies such like this. We have seen almost the same development in electrical engineering, where the proportion of women has increased slightly from 4.8% to 6.0% since 2010. Again, I'm very pleased to say that we have equal gender balance among new doctorates. In recent decades, more and more women, they have completed their doctoral degree in Norway. At the beginning of 2000s, about 1/3 of the new doctorates were women. Since then, proportion of women has increased sharply, and in 2014, for the first year when more women than men defended their thesis in Norway. In 2018, there were an even number gender balance. However, there are major differences between disciplines. Like many other OECD countries, Norway has also already achieved SDG 1, no poverty, SDG related good health, SDG 3, gender equality, SDG 5, clean energy for all, and SDG 7, and less inequality, SDG 10. As Dr. Janaka mentioned, I will also touch upon some about Nobel laureates from Norway. We have got 30 Nobel laureates from Norway, and 2 of them are women. Dr. Sigrid Undset, a professor and Norwegian novelist who was awarded a Nobel Prize in Literature in 1928. And another one is Professor MABIC Moser, she was awarded Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 2014. And in order to fulfill the need for requirement for expertise in several growing markets such as welfare, technology, sustainability, green energy, artificial intelligence, and aquaculture, and you name it, we need more and more engineers, and we cannot afford to leave half of the population out. Women has to be a part of it. Next slide, please. Let me tell you about the Research Council of Norway. What Research Council is doing on this. Research Council of Norway is a part of forefronting the promoting gender balance and gender perspective in research and innovation, both national and internationally. In the Research Council of Norway, there is a program called Balance on a gender balance in senior positions and research management. This is a policy-oriented program on the Research Council with a 10 years program period from 2012 to 2022. We have a policy for gender balance and gender perspective in research and innovation. And the main objective of this program is to enhance the gender balance in Norwegian research. And the second one is to bring about the structural and cultural changes in the research system through new knowledge, learning, and innovative measures. Recently, we had a call for funding. Topic of the call was to support for networking to promote gender balance in Norwegian research. The project duration for this call was for 2 years. I mean to say that the project who will get funded can run for the 2 years, and that the deadline for getting this funding was 31st of January this year. Similar approach was implemented last year in 2020, and we have funded 15 networking projects of a similar kind. So given this, Norway overall commitment to gender equality and its paradox that less than one third of the professorship in the country are held by women. The Research Council has therefore drawn up 12 different recommendations and measures for improving gender balance. Next slide, please. This slide shows the gender balance and diversity among researchers in Norway. The highest proportion of women in health trust among the researchers or academic staff who participated in research and development in 2017. 38% are women. The health trust had the highest proportion of women, and that is 51%. The second proportion is among the researchers and the academic staff in the higher education sector, where the 48% were women, followed by 41% in the institute sector. Next slide, please. This is my last slide showing equal gender balance, as I mentioned in my introductory phase, the doctoral degrees in Norway. You can see how the female share in PhD are increasing by years. And now I'm happy to say that the gender balance has equally between 50% or more than 50% are women here. Next slide, please. This is the slide where you can see this. This is the recent newspaper clip where they have mentioned that companies with less than 30% female directors should consider having a target to boost numbers in female partnership. Next slide, please. Yes. Last but not least, I would like to thank you again, the organizer, for bringing this important session and discussion and providing us the opportunity. Having said that, I wish you all have a successful and fruitful discussion and session. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Sidhu, for highlighting some of the very instrumental and important Norwegian interventions for mainstreaming gender, particularly talking about the Balance program, and maybe at some point of time we could approach you to know more about that program and how it is trying to bring in more women to STEM. Thank you so much. With this, we move to our third panelist. Our third panelist is Dr. Tonya Blowers. She is the program coordinator of the Organization for Women in Science for the Developing World, OWSD. And she is a renowned scholar and practitioner with a background in gender theory and research, science communication, and creative writing, and has been giving lectures on these subjects in various universities and colleges across the globe. She has devoted many years working on promoting women in science, particularly in the global south, and has been a part of various projects of regional and global repute. Welcome, Tonya. So the stage is yours. I'll just ask the backend to give you the privilege to, yes, I think it's already given. You may share your slides. Over to you, Tonya.
Thank you, Nimita. Thank you so much for that very, very generous introduction of yours. I'm very flattered. It feels actually as though my academic career it's been quite a long time since I was really an academic. I've been involved with the Organization for Women in Science for the Developing World since 2013. So that's been a really wonderful opportunity to try and put into practice some of the things that I learned about as a PhD student at the University of Warwick Centre for the Study of Women and Gender. Now, let me just see if I can shift it over and put it on full screen. Can you see okay? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I know that we all suffer a little from Zoom fatigue or whatever you like to call it, fatigue. So I try and make my slides not so text heavy and a bit more colourful. And please do feel that you can follow up with me at any time in terms of numbers and data. But today I just wanted to give you a kind of flavour of what we do at OWSD and how that's related to policies. I'm not quite sure where there's this description here, Dropbox, never mind, let's hope that goes away. Just this morning I was looking on the Guardian UK newspaper, and they have published these pictures from around the world of how people are celebrating today, International Women's Day. This is actually a picture from Vladivostok in Russia, from their government building, where they've all managed to turn their lights on in the shape of a heart. I thought that was rather wonderful. Here you may recognize this. This is from in India, Bahadurga. Don't know if you know where that is. There's apparently a big protest, a big demonstration by women going on about new agricultural land laws. And then here we have some women in Mexico City in Mexico, and they are putting flowers in place to record the number of women who have died from feminicide, sorry, men murdering women, basically. I just thought it was appropriate to remember why we have International Women's Day and all the different kinds of things that go on in the background, and that this is really a day about women's rights and women's equality that has been very, very hard fought for. And here in Italy, actually, we have this tradition, which I'm from the UK, I'm now based in Trieste, northern Italy. And I was surprised when I first got here how big International Women's Day was. And they present me every year with this wonderful bunch of yellow flowers called mimosa. And it's unique to Italy, this idea, but in fact, it's also very symbolic of Women's Day. So this mimosa flower it starts to grow at the beginning of March, right now in the spring. So it's a wonderful portent of the spring and change happening. But it's also a very resilient flower. It grows in places most things don't manage to grow. It faces many, many challenges in its journey to growth, but it can end up growing even when there's very little soil, where it's very stony, and then it blossoms, as you can see. So I think it's a wonderful metaphor for women's resilience and the challenges that women face as they go along. So I'm going to talk to you today about how OWSD programs respond to and inform best practice. So I like to think of the OWSD programs as a kind of virtuous circle. So what I want to stress today is what's going on the ground, what women are experiencing on the ground as scientists. We can tap into that. They provide us with feedback and knowledge, which we then put back into our programs, and we adapt our programs to respond to the challenges and the needs that they identify for us. And we're very, very often finding that our membership is innovating way ahead of us, and we take on many suggestions from our membership. So just to go around the circle then, our backbone is the OWSD membership. I have another slide I can show you a bit more detail about the membership, but just to say at the moment there's over 6,400 members across the developing world, and 84, there you can see here, look, 84% of our members have at least a master's or a PhD in science subjects. Most of our members, over half, are in Africa, but we have a good strong membership in Asia and Pacific, 19%, an upcoming membership in Latin America and the Caribbean, and 11% in the Arab countries. You can see that we are in 128 countries around the world. Sorry, I was trying to go back. I don't know if it will let me go back. Yes, it will. So for most membership, if there are more than 20 members in a country, then members can decide they want to set up a national chapter. Now, these national chapters are places where the women get together. The first thing that they typically want to do is identify what their challenges are, and do a kind of survey of what's going on in their country, what the resources are, what the difficulties are, and then do a survey of their membership and say, what would you like us to do? How can we improve the situation? And the outcome of that is very often workshops that are very tailor-made to the needs of the national chapter. So they might be in science communication, they might be in writing grant applications, they might be about information, just supplying information. These are the opportunities that you could go for example. They also provide a lot of visibility. It's a very good sort of practice ground for many women to start being leaders in a very supportive environment, and then they feel confident to take that leadership, those leadership skills and experience into more kind of into bigger institutional settings. We also offer, every year we offer around 20 to 30 PhD fellowships, only to women from developing countries, but these are least developed or scientifically lagging countries. So India, you should be glad to know, is not eligible because you are way beyond that. But India is very much a host institute for many of our awardees, especially coming from, for example, Myanmar, Bangladesh. We also have early career fellowships, and this is a wonderful program that's funded by Canadian International Development Research Centre, $50,000 for up to 2 years for a woman at the early career stage who may have got a PhD abroad, comes back home and wants to try and set up a centre of excellence back in her home institute. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. And all of these programs, really the aim of them, the end goal, if you like, but it's present at every step of the career trajectory, is to encourage women to be recognized, to be influential, and to become leaders. Because as other of the distinguished panel members have mentioned, having women's input into science makes all the difference in the quality of the science. Okay, so I showed you that slide already. Now, I just want to show you something, because the topic of my talk is about how individuals really feed into institutional practices. So we fund individuals basically, but I want to show you how the funding of individuals has an impact on institutions. The membership is the only program that we have that we don't directly fund. We leave it up to the members to do their own fundraising, their own visibility raising, partnership, etc. Because we are a UNESCO program unit, that can give them a lot of international status and identity. It's very, very helpful for them. And we support them every step of the way if we can. But I'd like you to look at this slide here. You can see this is the growth of the membership since 2015. Here you can see the number of members goes up to nearly 1,200 there. And these are the different regions: Africa, Asia, Latin America, Arab states. What I would like you to look at here is what's going on here and what's going on here. So In Africa, Africa has always been our strongest region. The members have increased every year, even though it dips, the actual number is climbing. Last year, we had 5 new national chapters in Africa. This year, because of the pandemic, it's been very difficult for African members to meet. And so I think that's one of the reasons for the drop in the numbers. On the other hand, in Latin America, we have had a huge rise, and Latin America is now becoming the sort of second strongest region in the OWSD network. And this has just basically happened over the last year, and this all happened online because of the pandemic. And I'd like to talk you through how that's happened, and it's really because of one individual I'm going to mention in a minute. But what you can see here is the membership coincides with the national chapters. So currently we have 35 national chapters globally, and the dark green national chapters are the new entries in 2020. Okay, so what you can see, and the other ones are established national chapters. What you can see last year is out of, previous to last year, we only had 2 national chapters in Latin America and Caribbean, and now we had 3 extra ones last year, right? Which was the biggest number in any region. In Africa, as I said, in 2019, we had a huge surge of national chapters. Last year, it was much more challenging. In Asia and the Pacific, in India, we've had a long-standing national chapter, and in China and in Bangladesh. Last year, we had a new chapter in Nepal, and also we had a new chapter in Palestine. This is all wonderful, wonderful news. But just look at this. What's going on here? In fact, what's going on is, oops, sorry, is I can't. Yeah. No, I'm going wrong. Sorry. What's going on is Kleinzy Bonilla, who is from Guatemala and is doing research in social sciences. I want to also emphasize how important it is to include social scientists in order to mobilize, to analyze, to comment upon. Okay, without the social scientists, we don't make the same kinds of links with the science diplomacy, with governments. It's very, very important to have them on board. So Kleinzy is doing work on capacity building in developing countries, and she's interested in international economics, human resources, and science and technology policy. She's currently doing a postdoc in Brazil, but she's completely committed to her home country, Guatemala, and she's set up the OWSD Guatemala National Chapter. And it's basically because of her enthusiasm and her hard work that she set up this chapter. They've got the wonderful executive committee that has to be approved by us in Trieste and with our OWSD executive board. Once they have this this executive committee set up, they can undertake lots of activities. And they think they found a venue. This looks like it's very typical kind of venue, not very well resourced. However, this is actually the Academy of Sciences of Guatemala, the National Academy of Sciences of Guatemala, where they managed to find a home for the OWSD National Chapter. So what I did, she got together, the Guatemala National Chapter, the membership in the Guatemala chapter went up to 360 last year, and the year before that it was, I think, 6. And then they wanted to connect with other members in Central America, which is, you know, one of the poorest regions generally, and we traditionally had very few people in Central America. The Guatemalan team managed to hook up with members in El Salvador, members in Honduras, in Panama, and Ecuador, and they have now actually, now we've got new chapters coming up already in 2021 in all of those places. And they wrote a paper together about what's needed. They looked at what does it take to make a community of women scientists. They looked at notions of belonging, belonging being so crucial, having a sense that you belong somewhere, that there is a group of people that you can relate to. Traditionally, as we all know in science, that has been the old boy network, right, to which women have felt very, very excluded. It's so important to recognize and see other colleagues who look like you, who sound like you, who have similar experiences to you, and who understand the challenges that you face. The second is mentorship, both receiving and giving mentorship. So hooking up with somebody who can benefit from your experience. This can also be a complementary relationship. As a mentor, you're learning about being a leader, you're understanding how to sponsor somebody. A very, very important relationship. Time and again, when you look at surveys, women say mentorship is fundamental to them staying on the career scientist trajectory. The other thing is a career path, just having a notion of what the career path might look like for a scientist, because I think we assume that it's a straightforward chronological journey, but actually for women, it can be a very, very curvy path. We can come off the track very, very often to have children, to look after the elderly people, to look after sick people. We can't always give 24 hours a day focus to our career. We need to take breaks, or we need to, mix it up with the other things that we have to do in our lives. Understanding that it's possible to do that, how you can do that, or even not feeling guilty if you choose not to, also continue with all of those family commitments. It's very, very helpful to have other women's experiences to share with. Another one is getting access to resources. What is available out there, and where can you find it? Again, sharing all of these things is fundamental. And finally, visibility. If you are seen, then you may be chosen. You may be chosen to represent your field of study. Do you know a woman biologist working in this field that I can invite to this conference? Or do you know somebody that can give a talk? The more that you are seen, the more you're invited, the more recognition you get. Prizes, for example, breed prizes. If you get a prize, you get a certain number of points, and somebody thinks, I'd like to give her a prize too. These are all the sort of cumulative aspects of all the different things that happen to women. And having a strong community dedicated to women scientists in your country that is aware of the specific challenges that you face is fundamental. And Kleinsey, in her paper that she did with these other women from Central America, they identified enablers and disablers in community building. I found this very interesting. So, for example, enablers are non-paid membership. Now, this is very, very different from how academies of science work, as you know. Academies of science are about paid memberships, they are elite memberships, they're about selection, and they're about exclusion, right? The enablers are a straight and simple entrance process, right? As opposed to a very time-consuming, bureaucratic, delayed process that can take up to 2 years sometimes to be accepted as a member. At OWSD, you can go straight onto our website. All you need is to be eligible. It's not a selection process. You are eligible if you have a master's degree in a natural or social science subject. You upload your certificate and it goes into our system. We just check that what you've uploaded is what you've said it was, and then you're through. And that can take probably 2 weeks maximum. And there's no membership fee. There is a voluntary contribution, which is $100 for lifetime membership. And it's only that much because in order to process the administration fees wouldn't be worth it if it was less than 100. So you can give it or you can't give it. It's up to you. Another enabler is inclusive sorority and mutual support, as opposed to this kind of club-like exclusive mentality. And very important, a bottom-up approach as opposed to a top-down approach. In this paper that the clients wrote, they did a survey of all of the chapters, the OWSD members, and these were the kind of responses they were getting. To be honest, I felt a bit frustrated when trying to be active in a couple of groups of scientists in Guatemala. This is before the OWSD national chapter was there. It took a long time to complete the paperwork to be accepted. And once I was part of the communities, they were too slow. Making decisions took a long time, in the sense of some directive members had almost veto powers. And another respondent said, in networks and groups in which I have participated, I have usually been the only woman or one of few women. Frequently, we are assigned minor roles, doing organizational duties, not really in leadership or decision-making positions. This is very, very different in those national chapters. And another one, networks and communities of scientists too frequently are managed like clubs. We must take the initiative to reach a level with recognition to introduce ourselves to those clubs. The way to do it is to have the endorsement that says, I would like to bring that person. Volunteering and doing hard work may not be enough. You need connections to be accepted. And I think many of you will have had that experience. Okay, so that I was just giving you some background on the membership, and now I just want to quickly also introduce you to another individual who I believe shows the institutional impact. And this is Elizabeth Banderson, who in 2018 received one of our very prestigious early career fellowships. So if you remember, I said at the beginning, the countries that we work with, and here Elizabeth is from Malawi, one of the poorest countries in the world. By definition, in order to get up to an international standard of scientific quality, you have to leave your country. There aren't the resources in that country. So if you can, you will get some kind of a scholarship and you'll go abroad to do a PhD. Whether or not that's an OWSD PhD fellowship, that's not important for our early career fellowship. But often, very often, women who have gone abroad and got their PhDs, they do want to come back home. They want to give back to their communities. They want to carry on with the teaching. They want to share the knowledge that they've got. But it's very, very challenging because when they return home, the situation is as they left it, but they are streaks ahead. The situation is that there is no laboratory, there is no equipment, there are no resources. They have huge numbers of students, up to 300 students that they have to teach. So they can't get on with their research. There's no internet connection. There's electricity at home is too expensive. You don't have the internet connection at home. You've got early career very often coincides with having a family of your own. You can't be 24 hours in the laboratory. You don't have the network that you had in those wonderful PhD programs abroad, where you were meeting all kinds of people from all different countries who were experts in your field. That's all gone, and you're back there, just you, all on your own, and you're in great demand because you've got this wonderful experience of being abroad, right? The chances of you carrying on with your research at that point are very small. This is one major place in the Leaky Pipeline where women will just drop out. This fellowship has been designed to try and stop that, try and plug that pipeline leak by offering the money to women to do what they like with that money. What do you need in order to continue doing your research at international level? Sometimes that will be, I need to buy some specific equipment. I need to get an MSc student. I need to develop my lab. I need to invite an international speaker. Actually, I would like some support with my childcare. I'd like to pay somebody to do some childcare for me. Or could somebody be a teaching assistant so I can spend more time on my research? These are all possibilities. Elizabeth, sorry, I know I'm probably going over time here, Nimita, but just have a couple more slides. Sorry about that. But give me a sign if I need to finish. So Elizabeth,
we can come back. Tonya, you can take a minute and then we can come back in the follow-up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll just briefly tell you that Elizabeth is doing this wonderful research and got a fantastic, unusual, unique piece of equipment, the only one in East Africa, to measure how insects smell in order that she could then introduce some new kinds of fertilizer. That's just an example, and I can take you back. I can finish there, Nimita. This is just showing you how the early career fellows as individuals, so there are 20 each year, we now have 60 in our cohort. This is the impact that one individual can have, so that they can have 30 industry collaborators, 6,000 students, 90 pieces of equipment that 2,000 people have benefited from, 200 team members, 23 new grants across 20 countries, for example. That's just to give you an idea of the impact. I will leave that. I'll leave it there, Nimita, and you can follow up with me. Sorry to go over a bit.
Thank you, Tonya. No, it was fantastic, the kind of efforts OWSD is putting across, and I really like the whole idea of moving from individuals to institutions and creating an impact. This is, I think, Tonya, we need to catch up more and learn more about such kind of interventions, which would be very useful for the Indian community as such. So thank you so much, Tonya. With this, I'll call our fourth panelist. Our fourth panelist is Dr. Mahalakshmi Arjani. She is the Global Coordinator of the International Service for the Acquisition of Agribiotech Applications, ISAAA. She is also the Executive Director of the Malaysian Biotechnology Information Center, a doctorate in science communication and a master's in biotechnology. Dr. Mahalakshmi is an adjunct lecturer at the Monash University, Malaysia, and serves on many international committees. She is the founder and editor-in-chief of The Petri Dish, which is Malaysia's first science newspaper, and serves as a communication specialist for the FAO Biosafety Program in Sri Lanka. She has been also working to advance and support women pursuing degrees and careers in STEM. So it's a pleasure to have you, Dr. Maha. I request you to kindly share your thoughts. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Nimita. I'm very happy to share my thoughts, and I'm going to go a bit more simplistic. The other speakers spoke about policies and global perspective. As a science communicator, I want to bring this issue more closer to everyone, every woman, in fact. So we are talking about gender inclusion and equity in STEM. STEM itself has been stereotyped to be a male domain. Today, I can tell you, although I'm a science communicator, not a very hands-on technical subject, although of course I'm trained in microbiology and biochemistry, but in my field, I still experience being the only woman in many panels and committees. And my field is not even as male dominated as engineering. So can we imagine the scenario in engineering then? Someone mentioned the boys, I think it was Tonya who mentioned the boys club. Breaking the glass to enter the boys club is not easy. And my engineering colleagues tell me about all the discrimination that happens in that sector. My daughter, who is doing engineering, was bullied by her male teammates. In group projects, she ends up doing the menial tasks. My students tell me how she had to pursue a field chosen by her parents, but her brothers could choose whatever they want to. My girlfriends told me how they were forced to give up their career to take care of their families. And one of my very best friends had to go for a divorce just because she was doing so well in a field and the husband was not happy. And I know how responsible she was as a wife. Now, you see, we are all living in a world, in a digital world, in a very modern era, but still gender inequality is a real thing. Many times I'm very active on my social media and I post a lot of things to inspire women. And a lot of time I get personal messages from men saying that I don't think this still happens. Things have changed. I think now we have to fight for women's rights. But then my examples are real and these are happening in every part of the world, including the developing nations. Now, if we look at SDG goals, SDG 5, the previous panelists spoke about that, gender equality. Now, to me, this is an overarching goal, and it plays a very huge role in all the other SDGs because women play an important role in environment conservation, life below water, life on land, climate change, zero hunger, no poverty, clean water, and just the list goes on. So unless gender equality, that SDG 5 is achieved, we'll be far away from achieving all other SDGs. Now, I always say that we are still missing or not maximizing the 50% of human power, human brain, capability, creativity, and leadership. Now, can you imagine if every woman is their capability is leveraged? Where will we be today? Let's just look at the most important sector. To me, the most important sector in the world is agriculture, because no matter what we do, how industrial we become, agriculture is where our food is going to come from. So imagine if we have gender equality in agriculture. Food production can be increased tremendously because 43% of workforce in agriculture is women. And this is not even a very high-tech STEM if you're talking about just farmers. But today we're talking about modern farmers, urban farmers. And I think we need more women. We spoke about entrepreneurship. We need more women getting into all these things. But women in many countries do not even own land title, making them not eligible to loans that will give them access to technology like tractors, high quality seed and fertilizers. So again, we're talking about access to technology, and women still lack this in one of the oldest sector. Moving on to innovation. Now, is it really true that we don't have women innovators? I went and searched for 10 innovation by women on YouTube, and the YouTube, it was just so many videos on women past, present, women who were innovators, who gave us many things. But why is it that they are all not known and no limelight, no spotlight shown on them? There was someone who asked little girls to name scientists, and every girl named a male scientist. Now, this is very stereotypic, right? Every time you say the word scientist, the image is always a male scientist. So when the girls were asked to name a scientist, it was all the male scientists. And when they were asked, can you name a female scientist? They all struggled. But you see, actually, we have many of them in every country. So why is this so? As a science communicator, I would say this is because women are very modest. We are afraid to take credit of our own work. We are afraid to speak up. When our work is snatched by others, we are not good at self-branding. We fail at negotiations. We don't come to the table. We feel very comfortable working at the background. And I think all these must change. So yes, there are a lot of problems at the very foundational level, but there are also problems where we have already achieved many things, but it's not coming out. So all these things has to change. Now, let me just go back to even more grassroots. The basic pillar of our society, the mothers. Now, to me, mothers are social engineers because the future social landscape depends on them. Will our society be made of healthy children who are well nourished? Will the girls choose futuristic STEM fields? Now, all these things depends on what happens at home. A survey in the UK among 2,000 parents showed that 2/3 of parents said they struggled with their children's science queries, and a quarter felt frustrated. So, which means they are not able to participate in addressing children's curiosity or responding to their curiosity. Children's science question often left parents embarrassed of their own failure to provide awareness or the answers. 16% of them told their children to ask their partner. So now imagine if the father said, go and ask your mother. So the mother must be able to respond to the science questions. And a fifth made up responses. They just made up some responses. A lot of them just said white lies or pretended that no one knew the answer. And 10% of mothers said that their lack of knowledge stemmed from poor support and encouragement from girls for girls in science subjects when they were in school. Now, let me tell you, this is in the UK. What do we imagine in our countries where we are still developing? So these are the areas I would say, going to the grassroots. How can we address all these things? We're talking about policies and very high level things, but I think it also, the basic science literacy and getting children or girls interested in science at a very young age. I know even educated women who do not have science literacy to make informed decisions on nutrition, on diet. And as much as I am a science advocate, I'm also very practical about, everyone being in science. Not everyone has to go into science and make it as a career, because it all depends on individual interest and also the learning capability. But what I always advocate is that for all girls, of course, boys too, now basic science knowledge for later use in life is so important. That is why I started the Petri Dish, the first science newspaper in Malaysia, so that science and society could be bridged, so that everyone can make informed decisions on various aspects of science. Now look at the pandemic, the amount of infodemic, like what WHO observed, the pseudoscience. How can we, the women in the family, guide our beloved ones? How can we guide our children in STEM education and careers? How many STEM careers actually, for many STEM careers actually revolve around medicine, engineering, pharmacy, and IT. But today we know even IT has branched out to so many real futuristic fields. So are mothers able to guide the children, especially girls? So this is, for me, this is very important as a science communicator. Now, all these things have to change. We need also more women policymakers to make inclusive policies. Many of us would have read the book by Sheryl Sandberg, Lenin, and she realized how difficult it is for pregnant women to walk from the car park to the office when she became pregnant. And then she started changing facilities in the office. So you see, we need more women in every sector. I think Tonya mentioned social scientists. We need social scientists. We need policymakers, women policymakers. So when women are in every sector, we will see the changes that will be suitable for women. For example, when we have more female automotive engineers, we will see cars designed to suit women. So this is where we need women in every sector. Now, finally, I'm going to talk about policies. Mine is going to be very brief. You know, the irony is, Dr. Gupta mentioned this. We see so many girls taking up STEM from school up to university. In fact, if we walk into university classrooms, except for engineering, pharmacy, or biotechnology, all these fields, there are more girls in the classroom. But what happens when we move up the ladder? We see all these girls are missing. Now, this is a result of the infamous leaky pipe phenomenon. How do we change this in this century? You know, it's a very decade-old problem, but it's still happening. Now, here are my pet peeves. There was once the Malaysian government announced career comeback or tax exemption for women returnees, meaning if women have left the career for many reasons, for family reasons, for any reasons, when they come back to work, now the government wanted to give 10-year tax break. Now, I actually found a bit slighted of that, because women like me stayed on. Not that I didn't have any problems. I had so many problems that I had to handle at home, but I just persevered, and many women did that. We marched on, we struggled, and in spite of all the challenges, we stayed on. So for me, I feel it is unfair for us to stay on. So why are we plugging a hole instead of preventing the hole in the first place? So I think a lot of policies require more thoughtfulness, so that it becomes inclusive, and we don't firefight. We don't look at the problems only when it happens, but then we look at how we can even prevent these problems. Now, another thing is, in our eagerness to get more women at the top positions, we might not also lose sight of meritocracy. Now, this is very important, because it's not that we lack capable women. We have so many capable women. So we have to search, we have to look for them and then put them in the top position. Because we do not want a situation where women are not taken seriously or we are not respected because we filled in the position just because of our gender. So I think all these things have to be really carefully thought of. Another one is, we always hear childcare centers at workplace. You know, everyone is fighting for that. We need childcare centers, whether it's public sector, private sector, childcare centers. People are coming in with building childcare care centers. But you know what I've not heard is, no one talks about elderly care, geriatrics care. Can I leave my mother for 3 hours while I go for a meeting? Now, I take care of my old mother. So you see, these are the things that I think we need to think out of the box to support women. It's not just the traditional problems that we need to look at. We need to really look at things in entirety. So we need to look at practical initiatives that goes to the source of the issues, and not just, you know, all those things that we've been talking year after year. I think there are a lot more support that women need, and many of them are not addressed. So these are the things that, you know, I would like someone to champion, the policymakers to look at this. So as I always say, we are still missing or not maximizing on 50% of human power. You know, there's the woman power, brain, capability, creativity, and leadership. My takeaway message is, we not only need more women in STEM careers, but also we need to create science literacy among women. And this is so important. As I said, we need these mothers who are going to be social engineers to create the ecosystem, to create to develop girls who will get into science. And also, as I said, to make just daily decisions that are science-based, to run a family that is scientific. I think women have to be science literate. So it's a very short intervention from me, but I'll be happy to answer more questions later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Maha. I think this is wonderful, coming from more of a sectoral and then moving towards more of science communication perspective. And I like the idea where you talk about how important it is to bring science literacy to the grassroots, and then kind of so I'll just throw a quick question to all of you, and maybe each of you could give a quick takeaway on those questions. And we can do a quick round. We are already running short of time, so maybe each one of you can take a minute or two to give your answer. I'll start with Dr. Mahalakshmi, and it's more of focusing on your personal journey so far, or your experience. So Dr. Mahalakshmi, you've been leading some of the significant organization at national and global level. I mean, definitely you've talked about that leadership is one element in the whole, pipeline, so to say. But according to you, what efforts are required to bring in more women to the leadership positions, particularly in the global South? Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Nimita. I see so much of progress being made by women, and also the initiatives taken by many governments, NGOs, international organizations. OWSD is one of the organizations. I'm a member of OWSD actually. So in my organization, for example, International Service for the Acquisition of Agribiotech Applications, or ISAAA, my two regional directors are women, and they're based in the Philippines and Kenya, so Global South. And some of the initiatives in my field, we try to shine the spotlight on women. So what we do is we have a social media platform, and we call it Science and She. So we put the spotlight on accomplished women who went unnoticed previously, and speaking about their achievements, making their voice heard and their thoughts heard. So I see many organizations are doing that now. What we do is we feature women farmers. As I said, not only high-level innovators and scientists, but we need innovators at the grassroots as well. So we feature women farmers, scientists, policymakers, industry players. Now, in fact, I'm talking to the Arab region, and we are having a strong collaboration in the Arab region, and they want to do the same thing. So it's very heartening to see that people want to join. It's becoming infectious, and women empowerment is seen as something that's very important in Global South. So many other organizations in STEM are becoming more sensitive to these needs, and I see that, and rising up to the challenge. So, so we are seeing more women leaders, and also creating more mentors. This is also happening for young women and young girls. And I think social media is a great platform to do this. And I would urge all those women who are already somewhere, please, use social media. Don't think that it's not something that's just for the young people anymore. I think that's where we can infect others with the passion that we have. OWSD, for example, we heard about the fellowship. British Council this year is giving scholarship for women, and that's a unique one, because they are not only giving tuition support, but also mothers to study in the UK and bring along their children. I think this is just excellent. And I'm helping British Council Malaysia to promote this so that more women will apply. So all these things are very heartening to me, and I think we need more. And I see so much of good things happening.
Thank you, Dr. Maha, for this. And I believe these kind of initiatives are so important to put that spotlight on women, not just at putting them at organizational heads or hierarchies, but also like recognizing their efforts at the grassroots. Thank you so much. With this, since we are talking about global and regional and national, I'll move to Tonya for a quick intervention on Tonya, if you're listening to me. Yeah. So you have been an academic scholar who studied gender so closely, and now a practitioner. According to you, you have been a part of so many initiatives and activities to promote women in STEM, apart from OWSD as well. So how do you see the whole landscape in terms of some of the major challenges of gender mainstreaming in STEM? And what do you think would be the way forward for this? Over to you, Tonya.
I mean, I think the question is actually about the difficulty is distinguishing between women and gender, that people don't really get that. People tend, when you talk about gender, they think it means women. And actually what gender implies is that we have to take a very close look at what are the mechanisms, what are the structural mechanisms that are meaning that women are not doing certain jobs and that men are doing certain jobs. You know, what is enabling the men and what is disqualifying the women, if we want to talk about scientists in general. And that is a very complex task. And in fact, I mean, and that's to do with this relationship between the individual and the institution. And in many ways, OWSD has always focused on the individual, and it's only just lately, as we have more influence, because we have more and more women who are attending the same institutes, we can start to leverage and say, you know, if you're going to accept our grant, then perhaps you should have a gender office on campus, for example, or, you know, perhaps we can insist that you would have your meetings after, you know, not after 5 o'clock in the evening, or, you know, there are certain things that we can start to put a little bit of pressure on. But that notion of gender, it's really about, you know, what are our expectations, and they change by country and by region. Of course, the situation in India for women is very different from the situation in Sudan for women, for example, or the situation in the UK for women. So it's really, really important to identify what is making it hard for women, which is over and above what women are capable of doing. So it's a very complex argument, but I think it's very interesting. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing, and it's related to that, is about what we mean by excellence. And I think, you know, a scientific career is all about being judged as excellent, outstanding, right? And then the markers for excellence are to do with your publications, they're to do with how many times you're a speaker at a conference, they're to do with whether you're a member of a National Academy of Science. Again, it's basically to do with whether or not you've been accepted into the old boy network, right, that we've been talking about so much before. And to sort of dismantle that whole, you know, journey of excellence and bring in also some of the aspects that women are particularly good at because of the situations in which we find ourselves in. So the caring and nurturing. But actually that translates really well in a scientific context, because that's about, you know, really focusing on your students. It's about sponsoring people. It's about mentoring people. If that were to become an indicator of excellence, you know, then the playing field starts to change quite radically. Also, publication, as we know, particularly during times of COVID, you know, women have been disqualified from that. Whereas many men have found, oh, it's wonderful, I'm finally at home and I'm getting loads of work done. Women are trying to teach their children, do the cooking, and they're getting less and less, you know, research done at home. So, yeah, I think the notions of excellence, again, is another one. And the final one I'd say is about access and permission, which is to do with, you know, another majorly important aspect of being an excellent scientist is how mobile you can be. You know, if you can travel, the more people that you can meet, the more people you can contact, and the more, you know, more you can fundraise, the more people see you. Many women in many contexts, in many countries, you know, some women need permission of their husbands to travel, some need permission from their partners. Women traveling alone can be dangerous. You know, doing field work, you know, a single woman with farmers can be very challenging. So these are all aspects that I think need to be considered.
Thank you, Tonya. I really like the idea of how you talk about bringing the structural mechanism around identifying barriers like, you know, about access and mobility, about career breaks, so to say. And then it's high time we challenge the whole notion of excellence and efficiency in science. So it's through community. I think through the science community at large, we could bring that change. Thank you, Tonya, for that quick intervention. With this, I'll quickly move to Dr. Sidhu for his intervention on the question I was very curious to ask is about, as a science diplomat, how do you see the representation of women in global STI engagement, particularly the involvement in major S&T projects and global negotiation? Is there a way to enhance their participation? So your quick thoughts on that. Over to you.
Yes, Dr. I will go very quickly about this. Actually, it's a very important question. And as a diplomat, my thoughts on the representation of women in global STI engagement is going, I think, in a very good direction. But still, we need to work more on this. However, I think this is my personal opinion that women participation should be enhanced and involved in equal footing in science, technology, innovation, political leadership, as well as in corporate governments. I think women should take more opportunities in decision-making positions, and which is a kind of critical role in mainstreaming gender in all policies areas. This is the first thing. And the second is openness. We need to create an open atmosphere around call and proposals. Clear path and requirements, like criteria, what it needs to be succeeded, how this proposal will be evaluated, and what are the criteria. This will make more, if we have like gender balance as a criteria, so it will make more promotions and more equality balance in fundings of good proposals. And another thing is very important, like different policy funding organizations should make some special fundings for networking, who can play a critical role, who can play a very important role in mainstreaming gender in all policies areas, where people can get together, sit together, identify the challenges, and find some solutions, optimal solutions, individually in the national level as well as international levels. This is a global issue. This is not a national issue. So in this, we cannot solve this problem alone. So we need to work in a national, global, international way. And many of my colleagues, they have mentioned about mentor schemes and how this knowledge can be transferred. And we need some guidance, or women, younger women, they need some guidance. For that, we need some dedicated mentor schemes who can help and guide younger women to take part active in STI engagements. And lastly, I would like to mention about this management on board, how to get the responsibility in the management on board. We need to take, women need to take the responsibility on the management of the board. They need to be involved. They need to show their willingness and have a clear ambitions and management as a critical for success. With that, and lastly, Dr. Mahalakshmi has mentioned, and my previous colleagues have also mentioned, that we need women as a social scientist. We need women as a policy makers. And decision-making position in industry and business is very critical. With that, I will end, and looking forward for more discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sidhu. The quick takeaway I had is like towards openness from the women's side as well as from the policy or the institutional side, to have more mentorships, to have more networks, and then have more clarity in terms of all the bureaucratic processes we have in terms of call and all. Thank you so much for your interventions. With this, I'll quickly jump on to asking a question to Janaka. I'm very intrigued, Janaka, because recently British Council collaborated with the Department of Science and Technology to launch Gati, which is, I think, draws a lot from the Ethnoswan model. Would you like to share something about that initiative in terms of the structure, dynamics, and timelines? We would be very happy to listen to you on that.
Sure. Thank you. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, Janaka, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I think just before we talk about Gati, I think both Tonya and Dr. Maha mentioned it, and now Dr. Sidhu as well mentioned it. I think I don't know how many people in the audience or people who are listening are aware that the British Council does run a very successful program in about 18 partner countries. It's called the Newton Fund. And for India, the partnership is called the Newton Baba Fund, which actually brings in UK and India's scientific research and innovation sectors together, and to find solution to big global challenges as well. And interestingly, like everyone else has mentioned here, for the first time, the Newton Fund, the Newton Baba Fund, is offering PhD placements to social scientists as well. So this is the first time that it's moved from STEM and included the liberal arts and the social sciences as well. So we're very thrilled about that. And a couple of partnerships to encourage young, scientists, especially women. We've been running these Women in Science workshops, which have been quite well attended. We do it in partnership with ISAAA and Pune Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research. We also run Researcher Links workshop under the Newton scheme as well. So this has now reached, I think, about 370 women scientists. And I really resonated with what Tonya was saying about the individual to institution. I'd love to catch up later to understand a little bit more about that. In terms of, and I think Dr. Maha mentioned the STEM scholarships. Yes, we've done 166 so far with about £2 million funding. And this year now it's open to East Asia, South Asia, and the Americas. And we're hoping that we'll get a lot of applicants. And the British Council is very, very happy to announce the Women in STEM scholarships. And in terms of Gati, I think how it all started was it started in 2014. It's called Gender Advancement for Transforming Institutions. The British Council, for people who know it, we're very fond of acronyms. So this is one more. But I think I think the DST came up with, which is great. And this actually started when a South Asia level research on women in higher education was conducted by the British Council. And then we found that there was an underrepresentation of women in leadership. This was then followed by several workshops and ideation. And then I think modeling the Athena Swan framework, how can we then look at the Athena Swan Charter and tweak it to suit the Indian context. My computer is threatening to shut down, but I'm going to try and see if I cannot get cut off. Anyway, the objective was to develop to influence the development of policies that will enable progress towards achieving gender equality in science, technology, and higher institutions in India. And the British Council is partnering with the Department of Science and Technology. And one of the big outcomes that we want to see is science, technology, and higher education institutions in India develop and practice gender inclusive processes and systems better. And the output we want from that is a gender equality framework, obviously contextualized to the requirements of the Indian system. And in terms of participating institutions, they've applied for certification award under the Indian framework. And I think the other big objective that we want to achieve is to develop sustainable partnerships between both UK and India to bring about gender equality again in science and higher education institutions. And the big output we're looking here is for partnerships of mutual learning and support, like everybody else on the panel has mentioned, between, here in this case, between UK and Indian institutions. And number of participating Indian institutions are about 30, and the UK institutions are about 6. So we're looking at platforms and networks for sharing good practice, amplifying impact, and also looking at how to develop and strengthen this framework, and obviously linking to UK Women in Science networks, everything that all other panelists spoke about, networking and all of that. And our knowledge partner for this, who's the license holder of Athena Swan, is Advance HE in the UK. And we are very happy that it's coming together really well. I think right now the process of identifying institutions is in progress. And we are very, very excited to kick this off and look at some of these big outcomes that we want to achieve. I just want to end with, something that resonates with me. She's the first African-American astronaut in space, Mae Jemison. And I think this is a message that we want to carry out on International Women's Day to everyone. And I've been inspired by all the speakers on this panel and Dr. Gupta and Nimita yourself. I just want to say that don't let anyone rob you of your imagination, your creativity, and your curiosity. It's your place in the world. It's our place in the world. It's our life. Let's go on and do all we can with it and make it a life that we all want to live and be very proud of. And like Mae Jemison said, I really wish that everyone on the panel and everyone who's watching a very, very happy Women's Day. And for any information on any of the programs that we spoke about at the British Council website, or you can reach out to me or my colleagues. We're happy to share more information.
Thank you, Janaka. Thank you for ending this on a very optimistic note. Before I give it to the chair, Dr. Gupta, I just want to highlight that it is very heartening to see that the STI policy has some of the features we talking about a gender office, bringing social science scientists close to the scientists, and as well as to incorporate the idea of elderly care. So it is very overwhelming that we all are on the same level when we think about gender mainstreaming in STEM. With this, I thank all the panelists, and I would invite the chair, Dr. Anita Gupta, to give her concluding remarks. Over to you, Dr. Gupta.
So
Thank you for being so patient. Thank you, ma'am.
So hearing out all the esteemed panels who are bringing a variety of thought processes into the conversation of the panel discussion today. So really, I'm overwhelmed with the kind of suggestions, recommendations, and the mapping of the ecosystem, the kind of intervention in the policy, which have really taken roots in respective places. So I'll just try to be very precise and concise while summing up what has gone in the last, say, 50, it's close to being 2 hours. So one very pertinent point which really emerged clearly, we need to bring diversity for all the fresh new perspectives we have been talking about, because no dialogue, no action is complete, even from the not only from the research perspective or from bringing women in STEM perspective, it is from the translating research into useful products and services, where women are the key audience, the key from the customer perspective as well. So I think in most of the good tech companies and even in the startup domain, this is now being widely practiced as whenever a new product is launched as a part of beta trials and all, women are an integral part of to have their views, for their feedback, for product modifications, improvement. So diversity brings as a key component. Another aspect is to really unlock the true potential of women. We have to really make them as a part of entire decision-making process. As a proactive measure, I think in most of my committees, at least, whatever conversations which have gone in, whatever points we take a note of it, I think beyond conversation now everywhere, we need to walk the talk. And we need to really translate whatever commitment which are made on papers to really put it on action. So having an action-oriented approach, which as a part of policy comes back as a blueprint to you, has to be really translated into action. So whatever key recommendations, something has to really keep a tap of it, whether it's only a pure talk, pure conversation, and really it is percolating down to the level which is actionable. So that's one other point. And everyone knows that what we are aspiring as a part of the inclusion, diversity, equity is to create the level playing field. So because despite whatever efforts which have really gone in over the ages, over the years, we do see women getting not the due recognition, despite they are hugely talented. So there are certain unconscious biases, you can say it may be lingering large in the societal makeup fabric. So that needs to be really broken. That's another aspect. And as shared by about our Gati program, DST. So these are the you can say cross-border experiences one can really take forward and transplant into your own ecosystem. So we need to derive the mutual experiences which other countries have done, been there, done that. So that is another thing. Another aspect which has also come out very clearly, integration of social sciences. It's not has to be restricted only on the STEM part. So it is the kind of complementarity which we bring along in all our dimension, which adds new dimensions to what we have been talking about, not solely restricted on science, because ultimately how it is going to impact on environment, human behavior, society. So that has to be now also be an integral part of whatever policy calls we take, new directions we take. Apart from this, I really want to highlight an important piece, like whatever we take, we have to take the holistic approach. It cannot be piecemeal approach. Holistic approach has to be really taken in. And just to sum up whatever we have in a very, because in a startup domain, we have a 1 minute pitch, 2 minute pitch. So I'll be making a very shorter one to really sum up, is to now we need to create avenues where we have to first focus on encouraging. So encouraging women and creating more enabling environment, and then having programs to engage them. And once we do the 3 E's, encourage and enable and engage, and they emerge as a successful, you can say, respective scientist in this domain, what really Mahalakshmi talked about, we really need to enlighten the whole world. The visibility piece, we need to showcase them. These are the new champions, these are the new role models. So we have to really, untilness we bring them and make the world know about it, we are not doing our job. So these 5 E's are very important for women in STEM to make a mark of themselves. And as a part of the government, from the government perspective, I think leveraging the social media nowadays, everyone is really hooked on to having social media presence, and wherever we get the opportunity, I make it, it's my personal effort to make the stories much more visible and share with a larger community. And I think now is the high time we really need to have the community participation of women, like the demystifying the myths about the science. There is, if you go to the grassroots level, there are very compelling reasons which parents quote at who are not really educated. They don't want to send their wards, their mainly the girl childs pursuing the science career. Now is the high time, like we have to hit upon all strata of the society, whether it's a grassroots, is a semi-urban, rural, urban population. And I must also quote about the kind of where there's a lesser participation and underrepresentation of women in engineering. When I did in the way back in late 80s, it was very less. But as I speak now, I see many women aspiring and opting for technical career courses. But as we move forward, product life cycle of technology is really shorter. We see multiple technologies paving way for others. So how do you quickly adapt and adopt the changes in technology? So the you can say the skill gap. So one has to really find ways to upon the skills to be really, you can say, competitive in the game, in the job market. And finally, it is the creation of better avenues and opportunity. Unless whatever we do, whatever we are doing, if we are not giving enough opportunities for women to participate, we cannot expect the true result. So ultimately, we have to have maximum opportunities, maximum avenues to maximize their participation. I think then only we can aspire to see the equitable and inclusive world which we are aiming at. I think it's all not only government responsibility. I see it's a collective responsibility of one and all in future to reshape our future, using technology as the backbone and using and maximizing women participation in every walk of life to really impact our human lives, our societies, and even the future generation. So I think let us be on the job of creating new role models. Monthly, every month they should be on spotlight, from wherever country. The inspiring stories should be shared. So thank you one and all. It has been really enriching and enlightening for me to listen to various interventions, their thought process, their viewpoints. I think collectively, world is a global village. So while India, we are having complex situations, complex problems, challenges day in and day out. So thanks to pandemic, we were united by that pandemic, and also technology became so pervasive. Now every common man talks about the science and innovation. When was the vaccine coming? My maid used to ask, what is the latest development? Because I was part of the monthly discourse which used to take place. So that is the level of penetration and the excitement which science has generated with this health crisis. I think the momentum should continue. It should not stop here, even after the vaccination drive, which is India is leading as the largest vaccination drive, is over. So there's always look for a hope. So never lose a hope, and it's the hope which will actually eventually lead us to larger aspirations and goals to fructify and materialize. So thank you, Nimita, for putting up and lining up the eminent speakers for this panel. I think there are very good takeaways. My only final message, we have to put them in action. After this conversation, after jotting down the key recommendations, I think let us all make it a responsibility. Whatever I have learned, I will just try to so the time start not t is equal to 0. Let us make it time starts now for every action to be on a fast track mode. Thank you one and all. Have a good day.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. And before we all call it a day, I mean, the way you have comprehensively and insightfully highlighted the main key takeaways of our discussion. And as you rightly say, we have to get things rolling and put it into action. Thank you so much to the chair and the panelists for joining us today. And before we we call it a day, I would call my colleague, Dr. Janice, for a formal vote of thanks. Over to you, Janice.
On behalf of the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, and the Center for Policy Research at IISc Bangalore, it is my pleasant privilege to propose the vote of thanks on such a momentous occasion. A big thank you to the chairperson of today's panel discussion, Dr. Anita Gupta, for putting things into perspective and giving the introductory and concluding remarks in such a comprehensive and perfect manner. This panel, of course, would not have been so enriching without the excellent insights of our panelists. So thanks to Janaka Pushpanathan, Dr. Man Singh Sidhu, Dr. Tonya Blowers, and Dr. Mahalakshmi Arjunan for giving us such thought-provoking remarks, and also giving us their insights about women in STEM and highlighting various issues which are very pertinent, particularly on this day. Thank all the members of the organizing team, of course, starting from today's moderator, Dr. Nimita Pandey, and the entire team at the back end for putting up such a flawless show. A special thanks to Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, Head of the Policy Coordination and Program Management Division, DST, and Professor Abhinandanan, Coordinator of the Center for Policy Research at IISc Bangalore, for their proactive efforts during and their role in concretizing this event. Last but not the least, I wish to thank all who have been watching this event, and wishing you all a wonderful Women's Day. May we continue to celebrate women not just today but every day of our lives. So with that, I would request Suresh, Dr. Suresh, to stop the live tweeting, and I would also request all those on the call here, the panelists, to please stay back for